You know that it's fun to go out, except I never leave my house. I'm either at work or home, and it seems kind of pathetic just drinking alone. So if you got nothing going on, have some drinks with Ron. Hello and welcome to Drinks with Ron. I'm Ron. This is my drink, a bottle of Schlitz Classic 1960s formula. The reason for the Schlitz today is twofold, or perhaps three. I guess one would be the fiance and kid are out of the house for the day, so I needed something to do. So I decided I was going to refinish an old electric guitar, well, not old, that I bought from a kid a couple of years ago who had decided that apparently crayons and little tiny stick-on stars were the way to go for decorating your guitar. So just completely plastered and chipped up. So I decided I was going to refinish that to fill my time. And then, of course, I needed something to refinish it about, so I thought, what a better thing to do than make it look like a Schlitz bottle. It was already cream-colored guitar, so I just got a can of the cream spray paint and I matched the red off the Schlitz for the pick guard. And yeah, about halfway through, it's looking pretty good. So I needed an excuse. I had to match the color, so I had to buy some Schlitz. So hey, there you go. I get to work on a guitar and drink with an excuse, with an empty house. It's actually kind of good. But the reason I'm actually doing the drinking right now, I just sold my Sega Genesis that I have had for years. I have had a Sega straight through since like 1987. I got the original Sega Master System, the equivalent of the Nintendo, the original gray with the flip lid. You know, when every other kid in Lancaster here had a Nintendo, I was the one kid with the Sega. Literally the only kid I knew. Well, later Genesis came along and I got that, and then everybody kind of converted, and then it was no big deal. But the original Sega, when you'd hit the power button on the Master System, if you didn't have a game in, 2 games would automatically load up and you could pick. It was Hang On, a motorcycle driving game, and Safari Hunt, Sega's equivalent of Duck Hunt, with the light phaser. So it was pretty sweet. But after my Sega went down, I actually tried to get them to repair it for me because I wanted to play those 2 games. I sent it in, they told me they couldn't fix it. Long story short, I called them and said, hey, it's the 2 games that are built in I want. Well, what they did is keep my original Master System, and they sent me a conversion box that you plug into a Genesis that lets you play the 8-bit games in there, and then they sent a copy of both games for me, and another one too. So, you know, like I said, literally straight through, since 1987, I have owned a copy of Hang On and Safari Hunt with the light phaser. And as of about 10 minutes ago, I can say the streak, the Cal Ripken-like streak, has officially ended. I mean, the guy tried to talk me down to 40, which I probably would have done, but I wrote him back and said, look, man, this is my childhood in a box. When most normal kids were out doing things, Captain Ronzo was playing sports talk baseball, you know, 162 game season, get my team to the playoffs, onto the World Series, win it all. Yeah, I did that. I wasted my entire fucking youth, and I'm okay with it. But like I said, it's, I mean, that was back when you couldn't pause a video game, or well, you could pause. That was an innovation, right? Hey, it stopped. But I mean, when you couldn't come back. To beat the original Sonic the Hedgehog, kids now have no clue. You couldn't just save your game. You know, you wanted to beat Sonic, you were putting in 3 to 3.5 solid straight hours. So probably a couple times in there you'd have to pause and stretch out the fingers. I got the old double jointed thumb, so it's an extra stretch. You know, and then when you finally lost, I mean, it was so infuriating, because literally you shovel in 2.5, 3 hours into a game and then lose 2 levels before the very end, or on the end. I mean, talk about infuriating. So, literally, yeah, I mean, years. I moved to Madison, I took the Genesis with me, I, you know, played all the stuff. I was still buying games at pawn shops up till a couple of years ago. So literally my childhood in a box. So I was slightly depressed by that. So I thought I needed a second Schlitz bottle cap to put on the knobs of the guitar. So I took that as a twofold excuse to have a second Schlitz. Unfortunately for me, this guitar doesn't have more knobs. Preferably 6 or 8 knobs would sound pretty good right about now. But yeah, Sports Talk Baseball, Sonic the Hedgehog, all the stuff is gone. But I talked to this guy in minutes, so he looks like he's going to give it a good home and play the hell out of it. Had a bunch of cool games. Shinobi. I still know. Date, time, and place. I finally beat Shinobi. It was July 4th, 1990. I was in Boscobel at the drive-in, which is not there anymore. My aunt and uncle used to own a drive-in restaurant right as you come into town next to a car lot that used to be Swenson's. And now where this drive-in is, there is a hotel right when you come into Boscobel on 61. So I was there, beat the game, and you know, it's one of those things where, like I said, 22 years later, I friggin' remember the date and the place. It was a monumental, like I say, you couldn't save your game. You wanted to beat Shinobi, you were playing that bitch for 3 straight hours. And it was tough. So I remember beating that. I still have, I fed the Sega through a VCR when I won my first World Series on the Sports Talk Baseball and recorded that. I still have the clip of one of my World Series victories on a DVD. I mean, call it what you will. Pathetic, whatever. Like I say, when normal kids were out doing normal things, I pissed away my youth with 16-bit goodness. You know, the old 2-button masher games. But yeah, had a lot of fun. And the Sega is gone. I am freed from the weight of the box of old video games. So I'm going to polish off my Schlitz. Believe me, that was a speech error and not related to the 1.5 beers I've had. But I'm going to polish this bad boy off and then go finish refinishing my guitar. And maybe I'll post my my Schlitzified guitar and see what she comes out like. So for Drinks with Ron, I'm Ron with a classic 1960s formula Schlitz, the beer that made Milwaukee famous. Which, quick story for that before I sign off. I gotta ramble on. But the Great Chicago Fire, you know, Chicago's had some issues down there. Well, at one point when Chicago was rebuilding, Schlitz, in a act of genius, sent down ass loads of beer to keep the poor rebuilding masses Schlitzified, as a buddy of mine once coined the phrase. So that's why it is the beer that made Milwaukee famous. They helped out in a time of need for the great city of Chicago. And if you drive around, I've seen video footage, there's still a lot of buildings with the Schlitz symbol, because they would help rebuild bars and establishments down there, and part of the deal of it was that you would have to have Schlitz, you know, somewhere in your building so that people would know the Joseph A. Schlitz Company was helping you rebuild. It was a way to advertise, get their logo out there, and then they kind of pissed away that little franchise, and now they've kind of gone back to the 1960s formula to try to rebuild the brand, and I will aid them by drinking it and making my electric guitar crappily look like a bottle of Schlitz. So, again, for Drinks with Ron, I'm Ron with my classic 1960s formula Schlitz, signing off.